Welcome to Real Life with Jenny. My name's Jenny Senaparatna. Grab your favorite drink, get yourself a snack, and we will get started. Today I have fresh air-popped popcorn with butter, salt, and some M&Ms. And I have an Earl Grey. It's a new flavor for me, new type of Earl Grey, so it's a little bit smoother than the regular Earl Grey. So today's a pretty good day. Let's get real. So I am one of those people, I talk a lot about the things up in my house. And I have a lot of really bizarre things in my house. It's just kind of who I am. They remind me of different pieces. I have a little stuffed cow and a little stuffed chicken that I got because I was in a phase that I was watching reels about chickens and cows, and I really wanted them. And they don't allow chickens or cows in a trailer court, so I got the stuffed kind. I have a picture on the wall from our 20th anniversary. We went to Rome, and it was one of the best trips I've ever been on in my life. And one of the things that I got to go see is someone using spray paint and making different pictures out of spray paint, and I bought one of them, and it is one of my favorite things. It's actually in the backdrop of my podcast when I'm doing the YouTube version. So I do two different versions now. I don't know if you know that. I do this version and then I do a YouTube version too. So they're totally different normally. And that's okay. I also have a Chinese checkerboard that my grandmother had. It was my great grandmother's Chinese checkerboard, and I have that hanging on my wall because it reminds me of simpler times. You know, when you sat and you just played Chinese checkers with your grandparents and life was simple. You know, just those few fun moments as a child. I just like to remind myself of those things. So I have really weird, eclectic things on my walls and sitting around. One of the things that I have a lot of moose because it reminds me of my dog, because I remember getting him thinking he is so big, and he's really only 22 pounds or something like that, but we call him Moose. So I have little moose around the house. So whenever I see something that's kind of cute, I bring it home, I find a space for it. But there's one thing that I bought. I'm going to put a picture up of it because you are going to love him. It is a teeny little flamingo. He is about the size of my hand. He's bright pink. He's fluffy and so cute. And I saw him one day and I was like, I have to have him. And I put him up in my house, which is so weird because I'm an adult with stuffed animals all over the place. I have them in my kitchen, in my bathrooms, in my bedrooms. I just love a cute little stuffed animal moment. And he reminds me of something that I want to talk about this morning or this afternoon or this evening, whenever this is. I don't even think it's morning for me at this point. I think it's late afternoon and I'm exhausted. So I haven't had enough tea. But the flamingo, I had to look it up before I got on here because I thought, is this a myth? Sometimes you hear things, you believe it all your life, and then you find out that it wasn't actually true. But it's true that flamingos are pink because of what they consume and what they eat. Whatever algae and food that they shellfish and stuff that they eat cause their skin and feathers to be pink, which is why you see different colors of flamingos, because it matters on what they're consuming. That is what makes them the color that they are. So some are bright orange, some are really soft pink, some are bright pink. There's different kinds all over the world. You go to your local zoo and they're going to look very different than when you see them somewhere. I've actually never seen them in the wild, now that I've said that aloud. But if you saw them in the wild, they might look a different color. So I just thought that is so intriguing to me, which is why my little flamingo is out. Because we are called to be the salt and light of the earth. The Lord wants us to be set apart, to be different than other people. That is something that God has called us to be the light and salt, the thing that brings saltiness, not necessarily attitude. They now use that as a slang, I think, that you're salty and you've got an attitude. Not that you bring flavor and something unique into it. Have you ever had a non-salted dish that you were like, you're eating your dinner and you're like, this is tasteless, and you add a little bit of salt and you're like, oh wow, now I can taste the chicken, and there's a place that we go for soup, and they have wild rice soup, and it is delicious if you put salt in it. Otherwise, it is bland and mushy. But when you put some salt in it, I'm like, oh, now I can taste the chicken, the carrots, the seasonings, everything. Like everything is just popped and brought to life with salt. That is what God calls us to be. God calls us to come in and be the change. Be the thing that is unique and different. And that is so true when it comes to a flamingo. Flamingos are born gray, and they change because of what they consume. And as Christians, we need to be careful with what we're consuming. Now, this is not a thou shalt not kind of podcast. That is not actually what I believe. I grew up in a very conservative home that had a lot of rules and a lot of things we weren't allowed to do in church. There are people in our church that never went to a movie theater, and that was fine for them. I was never allowed to go to a dance. You couldn't wear nail polish. I had to wear a skirt every day until I was a junior in high school, because from third to my junior year, you had to wear a skirt every day to school. Rules are not what we're talking about here. I'm not saying you can't listen to your country music. You should only be listening to worship music, or you can't listen to rap music, or you can't listen to T Swift or whoever that's the only artist I actually know is Taylor Swift. So not cool. But I'm not saying that. I'm saying what you're consuming is going to affect the feather colors. The colors of your feathers are going to be affected by what you consume. It is just the way life is. Whatever you are putting into your body is how you're going to look. How your light is going to shine, how salty you are going to be. That's just the truth. I remember when I was probably 29 years old, I sat in a service and I was listening to a pastor. And he was talking, he's a military guy before he became a pastor, or he was still a military guy, I'm not sure. And he was talking about how food is fuel. And my brain could not even, I was just like, I don't even understand what you're talking about. What do you mean food is fuel? He was like, you get up in the morning, you eat because you need the fuel, and then you move on, and then you eat because it's not about taste. It's not about how it looks. It's about fuel. And I was like, who are you and what kind of heresy are you teaching? I just couldn't even wrap my brain around it. I'm like, food is comfort. Food is love. Food is enjoyable. Food is what are you talking about? Food is fuel. I had never heard that in my entire adult life or childhood, and it has stuck with me because he was like, it's about what you consume. You are what you eat. And I will agree, you are what you eat, and I am very comfortable with who I am and what I eat. But that's not what this is about. But it's about what you consume. Who you are is about what you consume. What you're putting in is what's going to flow out. May the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be pleasing to you, O Lord. That is the truth of the matter. What I am meditating on, what is coming into my life, is what I become, and that's what color my feathers turn. And I just want to encourage you to look at what you're consuming. What are you consuming on social media? I know there are days that I'm on social media and I am so full of anxiety because of what I've consumed there. It is just, I just have to bring it back to the Lord and say, Lord, this is too much for me. I can't, this is way too much. I'm reading a book right now, and I normally read books that I know there's a happy ending. It's all about fun, and I laugh. Those are the kind of books I like. Those are the kind of movies I watch, because I know how they affect me. They may not affect you the same way, right? You may be able to watch a documentary that will make me cry for days, and you may watch it and go, wow, that was pondering and really intriguing, and it's kind of changed my life for the good. So it's not about rules. It's not about this is right, that's wrong, this is, right, and that's not what it's about. It's about what are you consuming, and what do your feathers look like? Like, are your feathers turning gray because you're full of anxiety because of what you're consuming? Or are you full of what God wants? Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control, because things that you're consuming are full of what God wants in your life. And so that is my encouragement for you today. My encouragement is look at what you're consuming. Look at what is coming out. What fruit is coming out of what you're consuming? Are you anxious and full of worry? Well, could that go back to what you're consuming? I don't know. I hope it's that easy, because it's an easy fix. I will never forget when I was going through counseling, and my lady was like, "Hey, have you ever thought of like turning it off?" And I was like, "What are you talking about?" She's like, "Tell me what what TV show did you watch last night?" And I told her, I think it was some kind of like law show about people going to jail or something. And she's like, have you ever thought about like changing that up and watching something that made you laugh instead? And I was like, no, it's thought provoking. I like to be provoked and thoughtful. And, I love documentaries that are kind of dark and deep. And she's like, have you ever thought about like watching something funny? And I was like, well, I could try that. And for me, it was life changing. It was like 180, life changing, because now I watch things that are fluffy and light, and that's what I consume. Do I avoid things that are thought-provoking? No, I do not. Like, I still have thought-provoking things go on in my life. But I'm very careful with what I consume, because I know that affects how my feathers look. And I know that affects my attitude. I know it affects how I feel about life. And I know how it affects how I feel about people. Sometimes even like social media, you can get really irritated at people on social media if you're not careful. And all of a sudden you're like, I hate people. And it has nothing to do with like everyone. It has like one or two people are just really negative. And you're like, this is so crazy. And sometimes I just need to take a break and go, I can't have this be so all consuming. And I need to go back. So what are you consuming? What are you going after in life? And is that something that you could make a change? Because we are really called to be the salt and the light in this world. There's not a lot of light out there, guys. There's not a lot of light. There's not a lot of joy. There's not a lot of happiness going on in the world around us. But God calls us to be different. And so I encourage you to go out and get your pink feathers on and see if what you consume changes your feather color, and if that makes a difference in the people around you and in your own life. Well, that's all I have for this week. I'm excited to see what color feathers you end up getting, blue or yellow or purple, whatever colors you want. It matters on what you consume. Maybe rap music is a great thing for you and you turn purple. That'd be great. I don't know. I don't know why purple would be rap, but I know that country is definitely pink, and I am definitely flamingo. So pink country flamingo. Well, you can find me on Real Life with Jenny on Instagram and on Facebook. I have really gone off the rails today. You can support this podcast by going to buymeacoffee.com/reallifewithjenny. Seriously, it makes a huge difference, and I really appreciate those who give. You can go to my website. You can see that in the show comments. But hey, what are you guys consuming? Is it pleasing to the Lord? Is it something that you would not be ashamed to share with somebody that you just met? You have to think about that, because what we consume is really becomes what our heart is, and what comes out of our heart is the words of our mouth. And I just pray that we begin to be more light for the world out there. Have a great week.